My name is Emily, and I'm 30 years old. For most of my life, I've lived in the shadows, unnoticed. I grew up in a small, tightly knit family, my parents and my older brother Noah. If you were to ask anyone who knew us, they would tell you that Noah was the golden child. Handsome, smart, charming, everyone loved him. And I was always there, but never quite seen. I live in a small apartment in Portland, not far from the office I work at. I wake up every morning to the sound of the city. Horns honking, people calling out to each other, the hum of a city that never sleeps. I make myself a cup of coffee, check the weather, and walk to work. It's a routine, a safe, predictable routine. Most days, I find comfort in it. But today, something feels different. I stare at my reflection in the mirror, brushing my teeth, and I can't help but wonder, when did I become the person I am today? The one who never asks for anything. The one who quietly sacrifices her happiness for everyone else's. Growing up, I never questioned my role. I was the one who kept everything together. I took care of the bills when my parents couldn't, cleaned up the messes, and made sure Noah was always looked after. And Noah never asked for any of it. He never had to. All he had to do was be himself, be the star of the show. And everything around him fell into place. My parents, especially my mom, always told me how proud they were of Noah. They would shower him with compliments. "Noah, you look amazing in that suit." Or, "Noah, your new girlfriend's a doctor, how impressive." And then there was me, the one who stayed in the background, quietly fixing things, never asking for praise, never looking for recognition. If anyone even noticed me, it was a brief mention. "Oh, Emily, she's doing something with biotech." My existence, it seemed, was just a footnote in Noah's narrative. He was the one who got all the attention, all the love, and all the praise. And I was the one who picked up the pieces. Even as an adult, nothing had changed. My parents still relied on me. My dad, who had never been great with money, would call me every month asking for help paying the bills. My mom would ask me to pick up groceries or run errands, things I never minded doing. But deep down, it started to wear on me. I was always there, always fixing, always giving, but never receiving. One evening, after a long day at work, I sat down with my best friend Olivia for dinner. She's the only one who ever really sees me, the real me, not just the person who keeps everything running behind the scenes. As we ate, she noticed the tension in my voice. "Emily, you look exhausted," she said. "You've been doing this for years, haven't you? Taking care of everything, putting yourself last." I stared at her, not knowing how to respond. She was right. For as long as I could remember, I had always put my family's needs ahead of my own. I was always the reliable one, the one who everyone knew would come through in a pinch. But when did I become invisible? When did I stop being Emily, the woman with her own dreams, her own desires? When did I stop being seen? "Why do you keep doing this?" Olivia asked, her voice soft but firm. "Why do you let them treat you like this?" Her words hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't realized until that moment how much I had been drowning in the expectations of others. It wasn't just that I was helping my family, it was that I had convinced myself that this was what I was supposed to do. This was my role. This was who I was supposed to be. But Olivia's question echoed in my mind long after we finished dinner. "Why do you keep doing this?" I realized I didn't have an answer, and that scared me. That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts raced, spiraling out of control. I thought about all the times I had put my life on hold to take care of Noah and my parents. I thought about the moments I had sacrificed, the dreams I had given up, just so that I could be the one everyone turned to when things went wrong. But what about me? When was it my turn to be seen? When was it my turn to ask for help? The next day I made a decision. I had to talk to Noah. I couldn't keep being invisible in my own family. I needed to be heard. The next evening, after a long day of work, I walked into the living room, where Noah was sprawled out on the couch, his eyes glued to the TV. I stood there for a moment, watching him. His face was relaxed, carefree, as if the weight of the world didn't exist for him. I envied him. In many ways, Noah had it easy. He never had to worry about anything, never had to struggle to be heard. He was the first in line for everything: praise, love, and admiration. And me? I was always in the background, silently helping, always doing what needed to be done without ever asking for anything in return. But tonight, I wasn't going to be silent anymore. I cleared my throat, trying to find the right words. "Noah, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but filled with a tension that I had never felt before. He glanced at me, barely acknowledging my presence. "What's up?" he asked, not bothering to pause the show he was watching. I sat down across from him, feeling a rush of emotions. I'm tired of being invisible, tired of always picking up the pieces for everyone else. You don't see it, but I'm the one who's always there. I'm the one who makes sure the bills get paid. I'm the one who keeps everything together. And no one ever notices. No one ever thanks me," I said, the words spilling out faster than I intended. Noah finally turned his head to look at me, his expression blank. "What do you want me to say, Emily? You know I appreciate you, but you always do this. You've always been the one to take care of things." I could feel the frustration building inside me. "That's the problem. You think I'm just supposed to take care of it, but I'm not a machine. I have my own life, my own needs. I'm tired of being the backup plan, the one who always has to fix everything." He sat up a little, now paying more attention. "I don't get it. We're family, right? Isn't that what family does?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. This was the moment, the one where I had to set the boundaries I had been avoiding for so long. Family doesn't mean being the person who always gives and never receives, Noah. I've spent my whole life sacrificing my own happiness for everyone else. And I'm done. I can't keep living like this. It's not healthy, and it's not fair. Noah stared at me for a long moment, then muttered, "I didn't know you felt this way. I didn't think it was that bad." "That's because you've never asked. You've never had to," I said, my voice softening. "You've always been the golden child, and I've always been the one who does all the work, makes sure everything is perfect, and no one notices. I've been invisible my whole life." He looked away, his gaze shifting toward the TV. "So what, you're just gonna walk away from us now?" "No," I said firmly. "I'm not walking away, but I'm not gonna keep giving without ever being seen. I've spent my life being the one who holds everything together, but I'm not the one who needs to be held together anymore. I need to be seen. I need to live for myself." Noah didn't say anything after that. He just stared at the screen, his face a mask of confusion. It was clear that he didn't fully understand what I was saying. To him, I was still just Emily, the reliable one, the one who would always be there, no matter what. But I wasn't that person anymore. I couldn't be. As I walked back to my room, I felt a sense of relief wash over me, mixed with a tinge of guilt. I had always been the one to sacrifice for others, but now that I was standing up for myself, I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing. I wasn't sure if Noah would ever truly understand. But I knew one thing for sure: this was the first step toward taking control of my life. The next morning, I didn't go to my parents' house like I usually did. I decided to stay in my apartment for the day. I didn't check my phone, didn't worry about what needed to be done for them. For the first time in a long time, I let myself be. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mom. "Emily, can you pick up some groceries for us? We're low on food." I stared at the message for a moment, my finger hovering over the screen. It would have been so easy to just go. It would have been so easy to fall back into the old pattern. But then I remembered what I had told Noah last night. I wasn't going to keep doing this. Not anymore. I put the phone down, took a deep breath, and decided to do something for myself. I wasn't going to keep running to their rescue, not unless they saw me first. A week passed, and I could still feel the weight of my conversation with Noah hanging over me. For the first time, I was determined to break free from old patterns. It would have been easy to fall back into my usual routine, rushing to fix everything for everyone around me. But something inside me had shifted. I had always been the dependable one, the one who made sure everything ran smoothly, the one who didn't ask for help. But now, I was starting to understand that being strong all the time didn't mean I was actually okay. The next day, at work, I found myself staring at my computer screen, completely unfocused. I wasn't tired from the work. I was exhausted from constantly juggling everyone else's needs while neglecting my own. I had put so much energy into holding things together for my family, but it left me empty, emotionally drained. Noah didn't understand that. My parents didn't get it either. I could feel it more and more as I tried to bury the thoughts and push through. That afternoon, I got a text from my mom asking if I could help with the groceries. I paused, looking at the message as a familiar sense of obligation washed over me. The old Emily, the one who was always at their service, would have replied instantly, no questions asked. But now I hesitated. Was I really helping, or was I just enabling them to keep relying on me? I took a deep breath and typed out a response. Mom, I can't help today. I'm focusing on some personal stuff. There was a moment of silence before the text came through. What do you mean, Emily? We need you. I read the message again. That word, need, hit me like a ton of bricks. It was the word that had defined my life for so long. I was needed, but never really seen. And maybe that's why I'd always felt like I was invisible. I had never asked for anything in return. But now, for the first time, I was asking for something just for me. I turned off my phone and sat back in my chair, letting the quiet settle in. For the first time in ages, I felt a sense of calm. I wasn't responsible for fixing everything. I wasn't the only one who could make things right, and I didn't have to live my life for everyone else's approval. The next morning, I went to work early, wanting to get a head start on a project that had been on my mind for weeks. As I walked into the office, Olivia was already there, sipping her coffee and flipping through some files. She smiled when she saw me. Good morning, Emily. I've been meaning to ask you about something. Are you okay? I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? You just seem different, she said softly, glancing at me over the rim of her coffee cup. You've been distant. It's like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders and no one's noticed. I'm worried about you. I sighed, feeling that familiar tightness in my chest. I've been trying to keep everything together for so long, Olivia, but I don't know if I can anymore. I think it's time for you to let go of some of that, don't you? She said, leaning back in her chair. You can't keep being everyone else's rock. You need to start taking care of yourself. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had been so caught up in trying to make everyone else happy that I hadn't even noticed how much I had neglected myself. How much I had forgotten to care for the one person who mattered most, me. I smiled, a little shaken. I think I'm finally starting to get that. The rest of the day passed in a blur, but something had shifted. I couldn't ignore the realization that I was finally waking up to my own life. The world didn't end when I said no. In fact, the more I stood up for myself, the more I began to see who I really was. Someone who wasn't defined by how much I could give, but by what I wanted for myself. That evening, when I got home, I sat down with a cup of tea and thought about the road ahead. I still had a long way to go, but I was no longer afraid. The phone buzzed in my hand, and I hesitated. It was a text from Noah. Mom's asking about you. Is everything okay? I stared at the screen for a moment before typing back. I'm doing well. I'm just taking some time for myself right now. I felt a small sense of pride as I sent it. I was learning to draw lines. I was learning to take care of myself. I was finally learning that my worth didn't depend on how much I could give to others. Later that night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I thought about all the things that had held me back for so long: fear, guilt, and the need to please everyone. But for the first time, I was starting to feel the freedom in letting go. I didn't need to fix everything. I didn't need to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders anymore. And I didn't need to wait for anyone's permission to start living for myself. Weeks passed, and I couldn't help but feel like I was living in two worlds. On one hand, there was the Emily who was still quietly helping her family, still carrying their burdens. And on the other, there was this new version of me, the one who was starting to make choices for herself, who was learning how to say no without guilt, how to protect her peace. Noah had noticed the change, and it was almost like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Every time we had a conversation, I could hear the subtle concern in his voice. "How are you doing with everything? I know it's been tough, but I just want to make sure you're okay," he would ask, his voice tinged with worry. At first, I would brush it off. "I'm fine, really. Just making some adjustments." But the truth was, I wasn't just fine. I was better than fine. I was learning to live for myself in a way I had never allowed before. I no longer answered every call from my mom or rushed to fix whatever problem she had. I didn't feel the need to explain myself every time I made a decision that was best for me. One evening, after a long day at work, I was curled up on my couch with a book when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Noah. "Hey, I know it's been a while since we really talked. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow? I think we need to have a conversation about everything." I stared at the message for a moment. The old Emily would have panicked, would have feared the confrontation. But the new Emily, the one who was starting to find herself again, didn't flinch. I had nothing to fear anymore. If there was something we needed to discuss, I was ready for it. The next morning, I met Noah at a small coffee shop downtown. He was already sitting at a table by the window, sipping on a latte, looking more serious than I had ever seen him. "Hey," I greeted, sitting down across from him. "What's on your mind?" He set his cup down and gave me a long look, his brow furrowed. "You've changed, Emily. I don't mean that in a bad way, but ever since you started setting boundaries with your family, I can tell you're different. And I guess I just wanted to know if you're okay. Really." For a moment, I was silent. Noah had always been my rock, my support system, but this felt different. I had always leaned on him, expected him to understand me completely. Now, I was the one who had to stand tall and explain. "I am okay, Noah," I said slowly, meeting his eyes. "I'm not perfect, but I'm finally starting to live my own life, and it feels liberating." He nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I can see that, and I'm happy for you, but I have to admit, I miss the old Emily sometimes. The one who was always there, who kept everything together." I could feel the weight of his words, and for a moment I felt that familiar tug in my chest. But this time, I didn't let it control me. "The thing is, Noah, I've been holding everything together for so long, but I was losing myself in the process. I've been so focused on taking care of everyone else that I forgot to take care of myself." His expression softened. "I get that, but it's hard to watch you change so much. You've always been the one to handle everything, and now you're not. I just don't want you to lose yourself completely in this new version of you." I took a deep breath and reached across the table, placing my hand on his. "I'm not losing myself, Noah. I'm finding myself. For the first time in a long time, I'm doing things for me. And I'm not going to apologize for it." He squeezed my hand gently, a mix of pride and concern in his eyes. "I'm proud of you, Emily. I just hope you don't push everyone away in the process." "I won't," I promised softly. "But I can't keep being the person everyone expects me to be. I need to be me. And that means saying no sometimes, even to the people I love." Noah looked at me for a long time, then nodded. "You're right, and I'll support you no matter what." We sat there for a while, just enjoying the quiet company of each other. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. I felt light, free in a way I hadn't in years. Later that week, my phone buzzed again, but this time, it was a text from my mom. "Can you send over the money for the utilities this month? Your dad's been busy with work, and we need help with the bills." I stared at the message for a long time, feeling the old familiar tug of obligation. But then, I remembered what Noah had said. What I had told myself. I was finding my own way, setting my own boundaries. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I took a moment to breathe, reminding myself that I had the right to say no. I didn't have to be the one to fix everything. I was allowed to live my life too. Finally, I typed back. I'm not able to help this month. You and Dad need to figure this out on your own. There was a long pause before she responded. What do you mean you can't help? We've always helped you. You're the only one who can. I felt a pang of guilt, but I pushed it down. I had to be firm. I know you've helped me in the past, but I can't keep carrying the financial burden for everyone. You'll figure it out. I need to focus on myself right now. The message went unanswered, and I stared at my phone, the weight of the situation heavy in my chest. But something inside me told me that this was the right thing to do. It was time to let go. Days passed, and I continued to focus on my own goals, my career, and my newfound sense of independence. Slowly, I started to feel like a whole person again. I took up new hobbies, went for long walks in the park, and started writing more. I was finally beginning to take care of myself in a way I had never allowed before. One afternoon, I found myself sitting in the park, staring up at the clear blue sky. I had just finished a run and felt the sun on my face, warm and comforting. For the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. My phone buzzed again. It was another message from Noah. This time, it was simple. Just wanted to say I'm proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. You deserve this. I smiled as I read it. Maybe I wasn't perfect. Maybe I wasn't always going to get it right. But for the first time in my life, I was living for myself. And that was enough. It was the first day of spring, and the city of Chicago felt alive in a way I hadn't noticed in years. The streets were buzzing with energy, people were out enjoying the sunshine, and everything seemed to carry a fresh sense of possibility. For the first time in my life, I wasn't overwhelmed by the noise of other people's expectations. I was ready to embrace the silence of my own desires. The past few months had been a whirlwind. I had learned to stand firm with my family, to take a step back and prioritize my own needs. But now, it was time for me to step into something new. I had always dreamed of writing, of turning my passion for storytelling into something more, but I never thought I was brave enough to pursue it. Until now. I had spent weeks researching online courses, attending seminars, and writing in the quiet moments of my day. What started as a hobby had blossomed into a serious commitment. I had written short stories, articles, and even a few chapters of a novel. But now, I was ready to take it to the next level. I was about to submit my first story for a freelance writing opportunity with an up-and-coming literary magazine. I sat at my kitchen table, my laptop open in front of me, staring at the email draft. The subject line read, Freelance Writing Submission, Emily Marshall. My fingers hovered above the keyboard as I wrestled with a familiar feeling, the fear of rejection. What if they didn't like my work? What if I wasn't good enough? I paused, letting out a long breath. The old Emily, the one who was always afraid to fail, would have second-guessed herself 100 times by now. But the new Emily, the one who had learned to set boundaries and trust herself, knew that this was the next step in her journey. She had to take this leap. With a firm hand, I clicked send. The next day, I walked to the nearby cafe to meet Noah for our usual afternoon coffee. It was something we had been doing for months now, a routine that had grown comforting as I began to navigate this new version of myself. "How's everything going?" Noah asked, as I sat down across from him. He was still wearing that same gentle smile that had always made me feel safe. "I submitted my first story for a freelance gig," I said, my voice steady, though I couldn't quite hide the excitement bubbling inside me. "I'm nervous, but I think it's time." His eyes lit up. "That's amazing, Emily. I knew you'd get there. You've been working so hard at this, and it shows." I smiled, feeling a warmth in my chest. It felt good to have someone believe in me, even when I was still finding my own way. I don't know what will happen, I said, but I feel like I'm finally doing something just for me. It feels like freedom. That's the key, right? Freedom to be yourself, to follow what makes you happy, Noah said, taking a sip of his coffee. And no matter what happens with this story, I know you're going to make it. You have a gift, Emily. I didn't know what it was about his words, but they made me feel like I could take on anything. For the first time, I wasn't just existing, I was creating my own future. The following week, I received an email notification, and my heart skipped a beat. It was from the magazine I had submitted my story to. I opened it quickly, not wanting to wait another moment. The email was brief. Dear Emily, thank you for submitting your story. After careful review, we are pleased to inform you that we would like to offer you a freelance writing opportunity with us. Your story resonated with our editorial team, and we believe you have a unique voice that would be a great addition to our magazine. We look forward to working with you. I couldn't believe it. My hands shook as I read it over and over again. The fear of rejection had held me back for so long, and now here I was, being offered exactly what I had always dreamed of. A part of me felt like it wasn't real, like I had somehow tricked them into believing in me. But then I remembered. This was the result of all the hard work I had put in. The dedication to improving, to learning, and to trusting myself. I replied immediately, accepting the offer, my fingers flying over the keys. A few days later, I walked into the Chicago offices of the literary magazine. The space was small but cozy, with bookshelves lining the walls, papers scattered across desks, and the quiet hum of creativity in the air. I was introduced to the editor-in-chief, Sarah, who greeted me with a warm smile. Welcome to the team, Emily. We're so glad to have you here, she said, shaking my hand. We're excited to see what you bring to the table. I was nervous, but I felt a sense of belonging here that I hadn't felt anywhere else in a long time. This was my new reality. This was where I was supposed to be. For the next few months, I threw myself into the work, writing, editing, brainstorming new ideas, and collaborating with talented individuals who pushed me to be better every day. It was challenging, sometimes exhausting, but every moment of it felt worth it. One evening, after a long day of work, I met Noah again. This time, we sat in a park, enjoying the quiet as the sun began to set. I felt at peace, like I had finally found my place in the world. You were right, I said, turning to him. This is exactly what I needed. It feels like I've finally found my calling. He smiled, his expression soft. I'm proud of you, Emily. I always knew you had it in you. You just needed to believe it yourself. I'm learning to believe, I said, looking out at the horizon. And I'm learning to do things for me. It's not easy, but it's worth it. And as I looked at Noah, I realized something. I wasn't just moving forward in my career. I was moving forward in my life. For the first time, I was creating a future that felt entirely mine. One that was built on my own passions, my own strengths, and my own choices. Emily had broken free from the expectations of her past. She had stepped into a new world, one where her dreams were no longer just that. Dreams, they were becoming her reality. And though the road was still uncertain, she had learned to trust herself in a way she never had before. Now she was living the life she had always deserved. One of freedom, passion, and the courage to follow her heart. The months that followed were a whirlwind. The magazine became a place of growth, not just for Emily, but for everyone involved. Her features continued to make waves, and her name started to gain recognition among a larger circle of writers, editors, and even publishers. But as the success mounted, Emily still struggled to balance the demands of a career she had once only dreamed of, and the quiet moments she had longed to protect. The work didn't stop. Every deadline came with its own pressure, every project was an opportunity for more recognition, but it also took a toll. It wasn't just the long hours, but the constant need to prove herself, the weight of expectations both from others and herself. She had given so much of herself to the magazine, to the writing, but somewhere along the way, she had lost a little bit of Emily in the process. One night, after finishing the last of a deadline-driven article, she found herself sitting on the couch in her apartment, staring out the window at the glowing city lights. The apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a space that existed only for productivity. She thought about how she had neglected her friendships, her personal hobbies, even her health, all in the name of success. Is it worth it? She wondered aloud. Am I really living the life I imagined, or am I just chasing the next deadline? She was silent for a moment, her gaze wandering to the bookshelf filled with books she had been meaning to read. A small smile tugged at her lips as she thought back to her early days of writing, when every moment was fueled by passion, and every success felt like a victory for the soul, not just for the resume. Emily knew that to keep moving forward, she needed to make a change. She had spent so much time trying to prove her worth through her work, but now it was time to prove her worth to herself. She was good enough as she was, whether or not the accolades piled up, whether or not the deadlines were met. That evening, Emily did something she hadn't done in months. She shut her laptop, turned off her phone, and took a long walk through the park. She felt the cold air on her skin, and with every step, she felt more like herself. No articles to write, no emails to answer, just her, the quiet park, and the sound of her own thoughts. When she returned home, she poured herself a cup of tea, and for the first time in weeks, she felt peace. The realization came slowly. Emily didn't have to sacrifice everything for success. It wasn't about choosing between work and life. It was about integrating both in a way that felt authentic, that felt true to who she was. The next day at work, Emily made another decision. She would continue writing, continue creating, but at a pace that respected her boundaries. She would carve out space for herself, for the people she loved, and for the things that inspired her outside of the office. She scheduled a meeting with Sarah, her editor-in-chief, and shared her thoughts. I've been giving everything to the magazine, and I love it here. But I realize that I also need to give more to myself. More time, more balance, more space to breathe. I can't keep running at this pace without losing sight of why I started writing in the first place. Sarah listened, nodding with understanding. Emily, you've done an incredible job here. But I want you to know you don't have to be all things to all people. I think you'll find that when you're taking care of yourself, the work you create will be even better. Let's adjust your workload, give you some time to recharge. You deserve it. And just like that, Emily found the freedom she had been seeking. As the months passed, Emily embraced her success on her own terms. She still wrote, still contributed her pieces to the magazine, but she no longer allowed herself to be swallowed whole by the demands of her career. She spent more time with friends, took up painting again, something she had forgotten how much she loved, and even started traveling for short weekend getaways to recharge. Her writing grew richer, deeper, because it came from a place of balance, not burnout. Her articles resonated more with her readers, because she was no longer just writing to be recognized. She was writing to connect, to share stories that mattered, to create change. One day, a message popped up in Emily's inbox from Sarah. Sarah, I was just reading through some of your past articles. You know, you've really come into your own, Emily. You're not just a writer anymore, you're a leader. I've been thinking, would you be open to helping shape some of the magazine's editorial direction? I think your vision could take us even further. Emily sat back in her chair, feeling a deep sense of pride. This wasn't just recognition, it was a chance to shape the future, to take everything she had worked for and make it something even bigger. For the first time, she felt truly ready. Emily had built her dream, but she had also built a life where she could breathe, a life where her worth was not defined by her productivity but by the joy she found in her work and in herself. And with that, she realized that true success was not just in reaching the top. It was in knowing when to stop, to rest, and to savor the journey along the way. And with that, she smiled, knowing she was exactly where she was meant to be. As Emily closed her laptop and looked out over the city one last time that evening, she felt a quiet excitement for what the future held. It wasn't the end of the road, it was just the beginning of something new.